Hey everyone, and welcome to the Jess Get Hired Podcast. Workplace bias takes on a lot of different forms, from unconscious bias that can influence your perception and decisions to overt discrimination that can be based on a number of factors like race, gender, age, sexual orientation, and the list goes on. Well, in this episode, we're going to talk about career roadblocks that arise from established workplace systems. Have you ever felt stuck in your job? Maybe you felt like you're not even getting ahead in your current role. Have you ever been passed over for a promotion, or maybe felt like your ideas are being dismissed? Maybe you feel like you don't even belong. Bias can create significant barriers to your career advancement and to your success. And that's what we're going to explore in today's episode. We're going to look at the various ways in which bias can manifest in the workplace and the impact that it can have on you and the organization. Well, before we jump into this topic, if you're new to the show or maybe you've been around for a while, hey everyone, my name is Jessica Fiesta George and I'm your host of Jess Get Hired. This is a podcast where I help you navigate the world of work and I help you to achieve your career goals. Well, in today's episode, I'm joined by Claudia Miller, who's a career coach and negotiation strategist, and we're going to talk about a topic that I feel impacts all of us as professionals, and that's career roadblocks. Well, if you like my content, make sure you're following me on social media. The best way to find me is on LinkedIn. You can search my full name, Jessica Fiesta George. Make sure you're following my Instagram page, Jess Get Hired, and then head over to my website, jessgethired.com. Well, we're going to explore the various obstacles that can stand in your way of your career growth, from bias to promotion processes, and just examine how company systems can sometimes hinder rather than support your career aspirations. Claudia is going to share a lot of her insights and her expertise on how to identify and overcome these roadblocks, and she's going to give us practical tips to navigate this often complex and challenging landscape in the workforce. Well, if you're just starting out your career, maybe you're looking to take that next step in your professional journey, you really don't want to miss this engaging conversation between me and Claudia about career roadblocks. Hey everyone, it's Jessica, your host of the Jess Get Hired podcast. This is episode 46. We're talking about career roadblocks. In this episode, I'll be joined by career coach and negotiation strategist Claudia Miller. Now, the 2023 Oscars, if you guys caught it, featured Michelle Yeoh, and she took home the Best Actress award. She made history as the first Asian woman to win an Oscar for lead actress. Michelle Yeoh says she kung fu'd the glass ceiling at the Oscars for her Best Actress win. She's 60 years old, and she also became the first Asian woman to win Best Actress for her performance in Everything Everywhere All at Once. She said in her acceptance speech, "For all the little boys and girls who look like me watching tonight, this is a beacon of hope and possibilities. This is proof, dream big, and dreams do come true." So that had me thinking about this episode and how many other people feel roadblocks in their own careers. Look, it doesn't just happen in Hollywood. This happens to everyday people like you and me in corporate America. Claudia is a sought-after career coach for women, so I think she might be one of the best people to help us learn more about this topic. Now, we're going to focus our conversation on career roadblocks because they happen to anyone. But we're also going to focus on company systems that are hindering career growth with an emphasis on women. Claudia has been featured a number of times in Forbes, MSNBC, and Business Insider named her as one of the top innovative career coaches in 2020. Now, Claudia provides bilingual, both English and Spanish help for serious professionals who are looking to secure dream jobs with dream salaries at their dream companies. And I love that. Thank you so much, Claudia, for joining the Just Get Hired podcast.
Of course, I'm so happy to be here, Jessica. And I know some of the topics we're going to be discussing today are really great. I can't wait for us to dive in.
I'm excited for you to be here. I was kind of thinking about our episode today. And, the month of March, which our episode probably will release way after that, but the month of March was known for Women's History Month. March 8th was International Women's Day. And then March 14th was National Equal Pay Day. And throughout the year, there's a lot of different holidays for women. And maybe some people don't even know about those holidays. In fact, I didn't really know till I started doing some research, but August 26th is like Women's Equality Day. There's all kinds of different days dedicated to women's health and well-being. So that kind of had me thinking about our episode for this podcast. And I mean, we should celebrate women year-round. Am I right?
Yes, exactly. And even the fact that some of these like equal pay day just means that it takes us, well, at least women. We're not even diving into women of color, but it would take us 15 months just to get paid what our white male counterparts will make in 12 months.
Goodness. Well, today we're going to talk about career roadblocks, specifically how companies might be hindering career growth. So are you up to it?
Of course, I can't wait.
Okay, well, before we kind of get into that, I have a little fun question for you. So when you were a young child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Funny, I wanted to be like a secret agent, but I have like anxiety. I get nervous, like when it comes to those type of things, and I'm not a big risk taker. So that was short lived. And then afterwards, it went to me being an architect. Didn't know anything about architecture, but I saw everyone's eyes lit up when I said I wanted to be an architect. So that's what I started doing and saying up until I was in college and realized I don't like this. I'm an extrovert. I'm not an introvert. And I like to be around people.
Yeah, well, for me, it was I wanted to be a dentist or a orthodontist because I had braces at the time. And then when I got to college, I realized my freshman year that I am not very good at math and science. So I was like, let me just pivot from that. Well, what kind of advice would you give to your younger self?
Definitely don't stop being ambitious, because I feel that I always consider myself to be very ambitious, but even I started noticing around high school and college, people started telling me to stop being so ambitious, to be more realistic. And yet I was able to accomplish everything I set out myself to do. So I would definitely just advise my younger self, continue being ambitious and don't let that flame go away.
Oh, I love that. Well, I kind of told the audience earlier, you're a career coach and you help people with negotiation. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about you and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm Latina, as you mentioned, and I'm the first one in my family to, graduate from eighth grade. Both my mom and my dad have sixth grade education. So I was the first one to go to college and really navigating this whole space of advancing your career, especially in the corporate world. And, I would admit, I did not set out to be a career coach, didn't even know that existed. But like I mentioned before, I was very good in my grades. I was a type A personality. I worked really hard and I felt like I checked off all the boxes that everyone told me to, since I didn't have any role models to reflect after or even ask for advice. So, I was very involved in school. I did really good with grades and I was very active and I did internships. So I assumed that because I did everything, that means that, I'm going to get a lot of interviews pouring in and they're all going to be fighting over me and who gets to hire me, all these things. And unfortunately, that's not actually how it happened. I found myself with one interview and thankfully they offered me the job. But that's when I realized that, okay, clearly there's something I don't know and people are not telling me this. And I don't have anyone in my network to help me. And I never wanted to feel like that again, because it really puts you like in a helpless mode. You feel you can't do anything. You kind of feel almost deflated, ashamed. There's all these emotions that start invoking in me. And I really set out to really figure out, well, how do you advance in your career? For someone like myself who doesn't have an Ivy League degree, I didn't come from a pedigree, I don't have a network of people that I grew up with. So how can someone like me actually advance in their career? And it took me about 4 to 5 years to finally like almost crack the code that would work for my style and for my situation. And once I did that, that's when I started getting multiple $30,000 salary increases, even though I switched industries. And I probably only qualified about 30% on paper for some of these roles. But because I knew how to be resourceful, I knew how to sell myself. I know how to network, even though I had no networks. And I was still very successful in those roles once I was hired and started doing the job.
That's awesome. Well, I come from humble beginnings as well, and I didn't have those type of role models like you mentioned to really guide me. And as an Asian woman, Asian stereotypes come to mind, but like my mom and dad always wanted me to, be a doctor or be a nurse or, be in one of the trades. And I obviously was kind of headed towards that path when I wanted to get into dentistry, but then when I kind of swayed away from that, it was like, who do I turn to? Who do I talk to? And I think everyone who becomes either a career coach and even like a recruiter, we kind of fall into, or HR in itself, you kind of fall into it.
Yeah, and you always see like, I feel like it's almost like, how can we help others? Because I feel like, I mean, now we have LinkedIn, but I mean, when I was in grammar school, we didn't have LinkedIn back then, where it was so easy to find people. And now we're able to leverage that to, accomplish so many things. And that's the great part about it. You don't need to have an Ivy League degree. You don't have to come from a pedicure background or have a vast full of networks, because now we can develop that and we can teach others how to do it as well.
Absolutely. Well, this topic, I don't think we should just limit women, but when I think about, those that may have roadblocks in their career, of course, I think of myself, I think of other women beside me who also have experienced some form of, career block in their careers. And so that term glass ceiling, not a lot of countries use that. I think it's mostly used in the United States, and I might be wrong about that. But for those who are listening who aren't familiar with the term glass ceiling, maybe you can help us define what that means.
Yeah, so the term glass ceiling was actually coined about 40 years ago, and it's crazy to think about that it's still relevant today. And I kind of wanted to give a little bit more of like, what does that actually mean? Because, and I wanted to give an actual specific example. So for the glass ceiling, it refers to the metaphorical barrier that prevents a woman from advancing beyond a certain level at a company due to biases against women. So, for example, I in the research done by McKinsey from women in the workplace, it really shows that at least for women, we make up 48% of all entry level hires, but only 38% of first level managers. And even from the like almost entry level role all the way to senior leadership role, there's a 75% drop. So that's kind of an example of like what the glass ceiling is.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, I think glass ceiling applies to, women, but I think it can also nowadays apply to all different types of backgrounds, LGBTQ. We talked about being minorities also in the workplace. I think that there's also glass ceilings in place for every minority.
Yes, I would definitely would agree with that. 'Cause when we think about women not getting paid, also there's men, like we mentioned, persons of color,
Mhm.
LGBTQ community as well, that they're not being represented. They're not getting the fair market rates that others may be receiving in comparison to us.
So the stat that you gave us, so what do you think hinders, or why do you feel like companies hinder career growth, especially for women or minorities?
I think there's multiple variables, and I am a big believer that yes, companies can create systems that sometimes can advance and hinder specific populations, but also ourselves, we need to take advocacy and actually take control of our careers. So I definitely do feel like we all have a big part to take in it. But the reason why there's such a discrepancy where there's not that many women when it comes to first level managers or even executive level roles is, one of them being there's no leadership talent pipeline. Usually
Mhm.
when, get promoted, some companies tend to look externally when they might already have great talent already. And they're not building and really grooming that talent to continue building that pipeline so that way they can continue to promote. And that's why people want to be at a company that appreciates them, that promotes them. But when a company's always looking elsewhere and bring in people, and when those people get hired, usually at a very high level, they bring their own people.
Right.
And the career people get displaced, they get let go, they get laid off, and there's just not being enough attention.
Mhm.
So that I've definitely seen as a big issue when it comes to that. Also, I've heard and I've seen that a lot of women, will get asked to do the role and the job, but they don't get paid for it or the title. Whereas men may not be asked as much, or they're just not taking sometimes these opportunities. And I don't consider it to be good opportunities. Actually, I think they're bad opportunities. And a quick example I can give you is a client was told that she didn't have enough experience to become a manager, but they wanted to give her the role still without the pay and the title. And that kind of confuses me. If you are willing to give her the responsibilities, just not the pay and the title, it doesn't sound like you're not thinking that this person is adept enough. You just don't want to pay them and recognize them. And she did this for 3 years. And then finally she got a very small raise. Then come to find out that she was getting paid still $50,000 less than her direct reports, even after the salary increase. And she had been there at the company for more than 10 years and had been very loyal. So that's an example of, yes, she should have done a better job of advocating for herself, but also the company should not have to put someone in that situation and really take advantage of them. And I consider that to be a form of exploitation as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you see that a lot. Well, you talked about advocating. So why do you think women have a hard time advocating themselves?
Well, there's definitely a lot of things happening with biases. Even job descriptions can be very biased around that. And also, they're not giving the opportunity where usually, as you can see in data shows, that usually managers don't get management training up until their 4th year in management. So a lot of people are just not good managers. And I've even heard from men, a lot of men telling me that, well, sometimes they don't know how to speak to their female counterparts or colleagues. They know how to speak to their male colleagues where they can just, go out to lunch and say, hey, you guys need to work on that, or just have that conversation. But when it comes to women, they're not sure how to have those conversations and navigate them. And also women even sometimes asking or, being very to the point, we're seen as being very aggressive, where if a man does it, all of a sudden they're seen as like very leadership and type A personality, and they have the CEO qualities and skill sets. So there's definitely a lot of those biases, but definitely for women, for them, it's really, they have this mindset. We're always told, always be nice. We're taught to be people pleasers as a young age for girls. So of course that's kind of stems through when it comes to corporate culture, and even some ethnicities. Like I mentioned, I'm Latina. So for us, it's like, be humble. We're actually told, if you shut up and stay quiet, the cuter you look or the prettier you look. So all these things kind of take a different form. And like I mentioned, and that's just, if we were to add everything together, there's just so many variables that are impacting and makes women scared about negotiating. They also don't know how to negotiate. They don't have the skill sets. Before, some of the salaries were not transparent. So they assumed that maybe because they get, maybe a 20K increase, that they should just be grateful. But now they come to find out, no, I should have gotten paid $50,000 more. So that kind of, a lot of it takes into play as well.
Well, what do you think about someone who feels like, they're ready for that next step, but maybe they're not really there yet, and they're feeling that pressure to kind of step up into a leadership position? Maybe they're not prepared for it, but they've been putting in the work. They just don't want the job title. And, like you said, you've had that person who was making $20,000 more when in fact she should have been making $50,000 more. But what about someone who feels like, I'm doing the work, but I don't really want the title right now of manager? How do you feel they should handle approaching like their boss or their manager?
When it comes to getting a salary increase?
Yeah.
So definitely having a conversation talking about an adjustment in compensation based on the new scope of roles and responsibilities. So right now we've heard the term of quiet hiring, where companies are doing hiring freezes, they've been doing layoffs, and now you may be responsible for 2 to 3 jobs versus the one job you're originally hired for. And I know we can always get that scope creep even when we're on projects, but also when it comes to our roles. So if you come to realize and look at the job description and what was agreed upon from the beginning, and now it's turned into, well, sorry, we let go half of your team, so now you need to pick up, this person A and B's type of work because we all need to put all hands on deck, right? get the work done with less people, well, that's an increase in responsibilities. And how I have my clients approach this, and they've actually been successful where some of my clients have received a 30% salary increase, even in their current job. It's talking about that discussion, but not only talk about scope, adjustment or roles and responsibilities and compensation, but making sure you have the data for it.
Mhm.
So coming in with a conversation of saying, I want to have a discussion on XSO day and talk about, the almost like the increase in responsibilities. And I want to make sure that the compensation is matching the current role that I'm currently doing. And even having the data, the past 12 months, I've been able to work on X amount of projects. A lot of these projects have led to X amount of increase in productivity, X in savings, or it actually minimized risk. And because of that, we're no longer having to pay fines. All of this has been done in the past 12 months. And now my roles and responsibilities have really changed because, we went from a team of 10 to a team of 5. And really my role has morphed and moved into more of this type of role. So I wanted to discuss a compensation adjustment.
Oh, that's great. I know
It's all,
you have an online course, don't you, or something like that for your clients?
yes. So I have my program called 90-Day Job Offer. So it really helps with every process, whether they're looking to get promoted internally or they're looking for an external job, or maybe both. Maybe you want to try with your current employer, but if it doesn't work out, you're willing to go start looking externally, and really walks you through every step of the process that I just mentioned. Because I feel like some clients do want to stay with their company. They just feel like they got burned either because they didn't get paid enough or somebody came in and they just don't know how to sell themselves. But they'll be able to do that through the program, like I mentioned, on 90-Day Job Offer.
All right. So 90-day job offer, is that available to everyone, or do they need to sign up for your coaching to be able to access that?
So they can access that as a course itself. It's a step-by-step training with all the resources already within the program. And if they need more customized help and want to set up a call with me or have a mock interview or a mock salary negotiation session, then they can upgrade to the group version of it or purchase additional coaching slots with me.
I like the mock negotiations because you can test your confidence with someone else on the other line who can help coach you through some of those things that, are kind of difficult conversations to have when you're not really prepared to hear what might be said back to you. So I'm glad that you're offering that.
Yes, I would definitely say that and the mock interview are probably the parts that my clients love the most. Like you mentioned, they get that practice in. And they can hear from me, and I can easily give them feedback to say, you know what, you sound a little bit shaky. You sound nervous. We need to work on this more. Or here's how I rephrase that when I'm asked this type of question. Or I know that we discussed this before because I know we worked on your resume. So you should mention this more because that's going to give you more leverage. And when we have leverage, that's when we're more likely to get that salary increase or that job offer as well.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that, and I'm glad that it's accessible to everyone. So what else is next? What's next for you? I know you're doing your coaching career and you've got your business. What's next, and what type of clients are you looking for?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to working with career ambitious professionals. I worked across 26 different industries and with clients from all levels of experience. So definitely I'm looking for that driven professional who knows they can do more and they're ready to feel challenged and they're not feeling fulfilled, but they want to move to the next step. They just don't always know exactly what that looks like or how to get there, even if it's in a different industry. So really helping those professionals move on to the next step in the career, helping them advance, and really being able to be compensated fair market wages as they should be getting paid. And then also what I'm working on kind of behind the scenes that probably will be released later in the year. It's one of the things is having those professionals that maybe want to also start freelancing on the side. And I saw a stat, something that they predict in the next 10 years, around 70% of the workforces are going to be freelancers. And, a lot of my clients, because I mentioned they're very driven and ambitious, they also want to start saying, well, let me try some consulting on the side, or let me try some freelancing and see how, whether it's to, increase their pay even more or to try something new. And that's something that I'll be working on, how to start a 6-figure business even while you're working full time.
Okay, well, maybe I need to talk to you and hook it up.
Happy to.
Well, awesome. Well, Claudia, thank you so much for your insight. You've given us some great pointers, and hopefully we were able to help the audience when it comes to anything that might be blocking their career.
Thank you so much, Jessica. And for any of your listeners that are interested, I have the $10,000 word for word style negotiation script that you can use on your next negotiation. And like I said, it tells you just read from the script, but please practice it beforehand before you use it. And I've even had clients get up to $30,000 in salary increases just with that script alone.
Amazing. Thank you so much again, Claudia.
Thank you so much, Jessica.
I hope you had some great takeaways from Claudia's discussion, and I really appreciate her for being on the Jess Get Hired podcast to talk about career roadblocks. You know, sometimes we are our own roadblocks when it comes to career growth. Lack of confidence, that fear of failure, scared to succeed, feeling like you have to be perfect all the time, or just feeling stuck. You know, sometimes we don't know who to turn to, and that can prevent us from moving forward in our professional life. Are you afraid to fail? I mean, we all are. That's natural. But how you persevere through that is what counts the most. Are you the type of person that looks at failure as a challenge, or do you look at it as a setback? Now, Claudia had some great topics that came to mind when we think about career roadblocks, and here's some of mine. So the first thing is unconscious bias. I think that plays a role in a lot of the different things that we do every day. And I think that might be a topic for another podcast episode. But unconscious bias is bias that can influence behavior or decision making. And so a few examples of that would be when we kind of favor people who might be similar to us. Maybe we have the same background, interests, or values. Or maybe we kind of look for people who might have the same demographic background, they look like us, they talk like us, we went to the same school. Also thinking about how we judge people based on a particular trait, and that could be anything from physical appearance to maybe the job title that they have. So a lot of things come to play when it comes to unconscious bias, but that could be a career roadblock. Another thing I think about is gender bias. So Claudia kind of brought this up. Many times, women do not get the same level of management training than their male counterparts. Another thing is unfair assumptions. We assume that someone is not capable of doing something because of a variety of reasons. So family obligations. Maybe it's a new mom. She just had a baby. Maybe she has to take care of a sick relative, or he has to take care of a sick relative. Maybe someone has a medical condition. So those are some of the things that I think about when it comes to unfair assumptions. Another thing is unconstructive attention. So unconstructive attention could be gossip. That happens a lot in the workforce. Overloading someone with work, thinking that they can handle it all. Maybe it's also undermining someone's work, not giving them the praise that they deserve. We do a lot of ignoring versus supporting people. So that's unconstructive attention. And then limited access, unequal access to opportunities, resources, benefits. That can lead to a lot of lack of training, unequal pay. So tell me, are you feeling stuck in your career? What kind of roadblocks have you faced? I'd love to hear from you, so make sure you message me, justgethired@gmail.com. Hit me up on social media. Tell me your experience because I really want to hear it. I would love to talk to you a little bit more. You can make sure you follow me on social media. I'll have all of my links in the show notes and of course on my website, justgethired.com. But remember, I launch an episode the second and fourth Tuesday of every month. And I have to tell you guys, I have a great lineup of guests coming. So I might release a few extra episodes sooner. So make sure you're following me on social media so you don't miss out. Well, my name is Jessica Fiesta George, your host of the Jess Get Hired podcast. What do y'all want to talk about next? I'll catch you on my next episode.